Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Rockin' solo for this one. Before we hop into a preview of this weekend's game, just want to give a quick shout out to all of our subscribers. We're up over 1,200. The channel has grown pretty quickly since we relaunched a few months ago. And obviously, if you haven't checked out our winners and losers of the trade deadline, we just posted that a day ago. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this video. We're going to kick things off in the American League. It's going to be the Baltimore Orioles versus Cleveland. It's going to be a 4-game series. Cleveland took game 1 of this series. I'm going to take the Baltimore Orioles here. Baltimore had a really good deadline. Spoiler alert, they were one of our winners in that video for the trade deadline. They just made a ton of moves. They solidified their starting rotation by picking up Eflin and Rogers. They solidified their bullpen, made it more deep, picked up Sir Anthony Dominguez. They brought in Gregory Soto, 2 separate trades from the Phillies. They added some depth in that lineup. Yeah, I love Baltimore's deadline. I think they're one of the best teams in baseball, and I'm going to go with Baltimore in this one. KC in Detroit, I'm going to go with the Kansas City Royals. They had a pretty quiet deadline. I would have liked them to pick up maybe another bat, but they did pick up Iserg from the Oakland A's, a guy that's been a late bloomer, position player turned hard-throwing reliever. They pick him up in a trade with the A's, and they got him for a lot of years of control too. So, yeah, I'll go KC in this one. Obviously, they're in a battle with the Guardians and the Twins in that AL Central, so it's going to be a fun race to watch down the stretch. Toronto in the Bronx taking on the New York Yankees. Yeah, my Jays had a really good deadline. They sold every single one of their pending UFAs, restocked that farm system, and now it's just going to be see what you got with these young kids. And try to lock up Vlad this winter. I think that's the next goal for the Jays. He's one of the best hitters in baseball again, and it's awesome to see. I'm going to go the Yankees here, though. Jazz Chisholm seems like he has kick-started that offense. 4 home runs in a Yankee uniform already. Just got a lot of swagger. They have him playing third base. He hasn't played third base in his major league career, so it's going to be interesting to see the development and how that works out. The Yankees swept the Phillies on the road. Pretty tough building to go in and win on the road. And yeah, they made it look pretty easy with a couple blowout wins. So yeah, like I said, Jazz seems to kickstarted that offense. Obviously, you got Aaron Judge going to win the MVP this year. So yeah, I'll go the Yankees. Boston at Texas. Boston had a pretty quiet deadline. They did pick up James Paxton, reunited with the lefty from a trade with the Dodgers. Texas has just been an up and down team, right? I mean, they're 4.5 games out of the division lead and 8 games back of the wild card. So, in order for them to make the playoffs, it's looking like they are going to have to go through the division. Obviously, they really didn't do much at the deadline either, right? So, definitely going to be an uphill battle from here to climb into a playoff spot. Tampa Bay at Houston. Tampa Bay had a really good deadline, much like the Jays, sold off, restocked the farm. Houston, on the other hand, it was an interesting deadline for them, to say the least. They overpaid for Yusei Kikuchi, gave up 2 of their top 5 prospects to the Blue Jays to get him. Kikuchi he's had a tough go. Let's just say it that way. They also didn't replace their biggest need, and that's first base. I thought they would have went out and got maybe a Josh Bell at the deadline. Didn't do it. Obviously, it's been a revolving door at first base for the Houston Astros. And yeah, it was a little disappointing not to see them fill that hole at first base. Rounding out the American League, it's going to be the lowly Chicago White Sox in Minnesota taking on the Twins. The Chicago White Sox have lost 17 straight games. Man, it's tough. I mean, this might be the worst team of all time. They're 27-84. They've had a 15-game losing streak and now a 17-game losing streak in the same season. It's been brutal. I mean, it went from once a promising core, right? Building up 2020, 2019, had a nice young core coming up, and they made the playoffs a couple times. They won a division a few years ago, and it just hasn't it hasn't clicked, right? They just traded Eloy Jimenez to Baltimore, and yeah, I feel bad for White Sox fans. It's going to be a long road ahead for them. Going over to the National League, it's going to be Miami at Atlanta. I'm going to take Atlanta in this one. Obviously, their big addition at the trade deadline was bringing back Jorge Soler in a surprise move, I think, to a lot of people. I didn't think that the Giants would move on from Soler that quickly in the trade deadline. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where he fits in. He batted leadoff for them back in the day. Obviously, won the World Series MVP in 2021 back with Atlanta. Made a couple stops in between Miami, obviously, and then San Francisco. I am going to go Atlanta, like I said. St. Louis at Chicago. This is a 4-game series. Chicago won the first game of the series. I'm going to take the Cubs here. They got Bellinger back. Chicago needs to, they need to get winning some games. Yeah, it's no secret that this team, it's now or never. They're 6 games out of a wild card spot. They sit last place in the NL Central. I'm not saying their season's on life support, but it kind of is. All right. I mean, they didn't have a great deadline. Obviously, getting Bellinger back helps. They picked up Isaac Paredes in a trade with Tampa Bay in a flip for Morel. So that was I think a plus move for them. Obviously, I think Paredes is a better hitter than Morel. Obviously, they missed some pop there with Morel, but Morel was batting under 200. So I think that's an upgrade at third base for the Cubs. And they traded Mark Leiter Jr. to the Yankees. But yeah, didn't really do much at the deadline. And yeah, they need to string some wins together for sure. Milwaukee at Washington. I'm going to go Milwaukee here. They picked up Frankie Montas the deadline, but the biggest need was a bat for them, with Christian Yelich potentially out for the rest of the season. Obviously, the offense has been good this year, right? One of the most explosive offenses in the league, but when you lose this igniter of that offense in Yelich, it's makes it tougher, especially when you didn't really replace it. Puts a lot of pressure on your young players and role players to step up in his absence, and we'll see if somebody can step through, right, and step up for this team. San Francisco at Cincinnati. I'm going to go the Reds here. Reds didn't really do much either, right? The Reds are kind of in that same spot as the Cubs right now. They sit 5.5 out of a wild card spot. I thought they would have been better than this, to be honest. I thought this team would have taken another step. I like their starting pitching. They're young, hard throwing, and yeah, I'm going to go Cincinnati here. San Francisco's kind of been a mixed bag. They do sit 4.5 out of a wild card spot. Colorado at San Diego. San Diego was super aggressive at the deadline, right? They've traded 12 of their 15 top prospects the last 3 trades. They're going all in on the bullpen. Obviously they picked up Arias at the beginning of the year. They bring in Jason Adam from Tampa Bay. They traded 3 prospects for him, and then they got the next best reliever, which was Tanner Scott from the Marlins. And yeah, they gave up a haul to get him. They traded their 2nd and their 3rd and their 5th prospects to bring in Scott, and he's a pending UFA. So right now, the San Diego Padres, believe it or not, are 4.5 games out of a division lead. They are half game up on a wild card spot. They've closed that gap pretty quickly on the LA Dodgers, right? The Dodgers are kind of slipping. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They've lost 2 in a row. And here the San Diego Padres come, winners of 9 of their last 10. So obviously they felt the need to push their chips in. Interesting to go all in on a bullpen. Obviously, you got Suarez back there, so you got 3 capable closers back there. But yeah, they're starting pitching little thin. Obviously, Darvish is out right now. That's a tough blow. You get a lead to the 7th inning. I love their chances to win with the 3-headed monster they have at that back end of the bullpen. Arizona at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh really didn't do much at the deadline, not as much as I thought they would have. They picked up Isaiah Falefa from the Jays, traded a top 15 prospect for him, and they picked up Brian De La Cruz from the Marlins. So I like that move. Brian De La Cruz will bring some power in that outfield, and Isaiah Falefa, who is on a rehab assignment right now, he'll be back playing. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife, can play all over the diamond. And I just thought Pittsburgh would have went in and made one big splashy move with the success that they're having right now. Obviously, they sit 2.5 games out of a wild card spot, 6 games back of the division lead. They're trailing the Cardinals and the Brewers. And yeah, with the success they've had on the pitching side, obviously with Skeens, Jones, Keller, that starting rotation's pretty good. If you get into the playoffs, I would have liked them to get maybe a starter and a bat. But yeah, it'll be fun to watch down the stretch for the young Pirates. Shifting over to the Interleague, it's going to be the Mets versus the LA Angels. The Mets have been one of the best teams in all of baseball. They've won 7 of their last 10. They're a half game out of a wild card spot. They just slipped out of a wild card spot just recently. LA Angels obviously hit with some bad news today. Mike Trout shut down for the season after a second meniscus tear. It's unfortunate. Obviously, he suffered that setback in his rehab assignment. And obviously, we get the news today that Mike Trout's done again. So, yeah, it's been a tough season for the Halos. Obviously, they got some young players to root for, but yeah, Mike Trout just hasn't really been able to stay on the field the last few years. And it's really unfortunate because obviously he's one of the greatest players to ever play this game. And the MLB is fun when he's on the field. So obviously to see him get shut down again for the season, it's unfortunate for not only Angels, but the rest of baseball. LA Dodgers at Oakland. Obviously, I am going to go with the Dodgers here. Not much to say here. The Dodgers' last trip to the Oakland Coliseum, and would not be surprised if this was a sweep. Philadelphia is in Seattle to round out our preview of this weekend's games. I am going to go Seattle here. I love Seattle's pitching. I love what they did at the deadline. They picked up Randy Arozarena. They bring in Justin Turner, and it'll be interesting to see kind of what the offense does when Rodriguez comes back and JP Crawford comes back and everyone kind of slides down. This pitching is the best in the league right now. And they added to their bullpen, right? They pick up Yimi Garcia from the Toronto Blue Jays and they create kind of a two-headed monster at that back end of that bullpen with him and Munoz. So, yeah, really solid deadline for Seattle. Needed some offense, picked up some good offensive pieces, and we will see what transpires in the last few months here of the season and into the playoffs. Seattle obviously tied with the division with the Astros. The Astros slammed that door shut, gained 10 games on them in a month, and just kind of shocked the system of the Mariners. Obviously, the Mariners had a poor first half offensively with a really good pitching rotation, and that kind of costed them. They just didn't score enough runs and allowed the Astros to kind of creep back, and now tied for that division lead and 3.5 games back in the wild card race. So they're kind of like Texas. They got to probably make the playoffs through the division. To round out our predictions, I am going to take Baltimore, KC, the Yankees, Boston, Houston, Minnesota, Atlanta, the Chicago Cubs, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, San Diego, Pittsburgh, the New York Mets, the LA Dodgers, and the Seattle Mariners. And Dylan's going to go with Baltimore, KC, the New York Yankees, Boston, Houston, Minnesota, Atlanta, St. Louis, Milwaukee, San Francisco, San Diego, Pittsburgh, the New York Mets, and the LA Dodgers, along with the Philadelphia Phillies. If you like this video, give us a like and subscribe. And if you haven't checked out our winners and losers of the trade deadline, go check that out right now. We just released that yesterday, went over kind of what teams improved, what teams didn't improve that we thought should have had a better deadline. Yeah, if you like this video, give us a like and subscribe. Over 1,200 subscribers. It's been awesome to see the growth of this channel over the last few months, and we'll see you on the next one. Later, guys.